Are you ready to embrace aging with vitality and purpose? Welcome to Essential Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Mikel Segal. Let's dive in. Hi, so welcome everyone. Today we have a very special guest, Elisa Chiang, and she's a physician, and I will invite her to share more about who she is and what she does. So welcome, Elisa.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on. So I practice as an ocular plastic surgeon. I work part-time and I help physicians reach their financial goals. And so I thought it would be great to talk about financial wellness today.
Yeah, I love that because it's something that, a lot of us don't really learn about. I mean, I think in high school there's a couple of, classes and learning about how to manage your finances, but for the rest, after that, we're kind of on our own. So I
Well,
think,
that's pretty good because I don't think in my high school there are even any
oh,
financial
really?
classes. Nowadays, I think maybe more so. I live in the state of Ohio, and Ohio did pass a law either last year or the year before that now high schools do have to have some kind of financial class offered.
Oh,
But I
that's fun.
think, yeah, but it may only be offered. I don't know that it's a requirement for students to actually take it.
Yeah, I just remember like having to learn how to do your taxes. That's just a memory I have of of something we did in grade 12, I think. But I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are now, and including some of the struggles you may have had and what led you to doing what you're doing right now.
So it goes way back to actually to medical school, or even maybe before that. I finished undergrad and I spent a year working as a research assistant while I was applying for medical school. And my parents at that point were like, okay, you're working now. You have to open up a Roth IRA and put, I think back then it was like $3,000 into it. And this is what you do as an adult. And they didn't really explain like that you have to invest this or whatever, but I listened to my parents. And even though I think I made $30,000 that year working as a research assistant. So 3,000 was 10% of my income, which actually is the amount that back then they were saying that you should put towards retirement. And I actually did have, employee sponsored retirement account, but I don't understand that what that was or whatever. So I didn't contribute to that. So maybe I lost some matching there. But anywho, I was thinking I'm going to medical school anyways. This is just for a year. It doesn't really matter. And I did an MD PhD program. During my PhD years, in retrospect, it's the first time that I really started having some feelings of burnout in terms of that cynicism and loss of autonomy bit. I had a PI who was very micromanaging and it was driving me crazy. And it led me to the belief like, I don't ever want to have a boss who I have to work for like this. And around that time, my brother-in-law actually introduced me to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I read that. I was like, oh, okay, I've got to become a business owner, an entrepreneur, and I got to figure out this money thing. And I had already actually started learning about personal finance even before then, but it really got me on this path of like, okay, I need to figure out how to be financially independent like as soon as possible. And this is before like, I mean, the FIRE movement maybe was out, but I never heard of it. I this was a time era where I don't think there was nearly as many blogs. I definitely didn't even know about podcasts then, even if they existed. And so it was really just reading personal finance books and investing books and figuring out on my own. And I actually even started investing in real estate while I was in the grad school phase. My developing my own sense of investing in finances really happened at that point. I started talking to my fellow medical students and then later on my residents and fellows about like how important this was in order to actually build that financial independence piece.
Cool. Okay, so you kind of, it sounds like as you were going through your training, you really started educating yourself on finances and how to establish yourself financially and set yourself up well. Is that right?
Yes. And it's one of those things that we really aren't taught at all. Like we kind of talked a little bit about what's happening in high school these days, but I know that during my college, I studied science. I got an engineering degree. They like we were all in order to graduate, we had to take a certain number of humanities classes. I actually did take economics 101, but that was like so high level and like the entire economy that had nothing to do with like actual personal finances and what you do with your own money or how you invest your own money.
Yeah.
And so at no point were we taught any of these things. The only kind of time I might have been taught anything is during orientation when I had that research assistant job and I was meeting with HR and they were talking about a 403B plan, but I had never heard of what it was. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I'm just lucky that my parents like was like, oh, you have to open this account and put money in. And I only did it because my parents told me did it. When HR was like, no, you really should be putting money into this 403B plan. I was like, I never heard of this. I don't know
Right.
anyone that's doing it. Like, I don't know who you are really. So I didn't do it.
Right. So it kind of sparked, like your parents kind of telling you that kind of sparked your curiosity or your kind of just sparked something in you to learn more and figure out what you needed to do.
Yeah, and actually it was a few years later when I realized, oh, you don't just put money in here, you actually have to invest it and you have to figure out how to invest it. And they didn't actually go through that part.
That's funny. So what was the most surprising thing for you, like when you went on this journey and learned all this stuff? What did you find most surprising?
What I think I found most surprising is how little I was getting through to other medical students and residents about like the importance of actually figuring this stuff out. I think there's really that mindset that, oh, like we're going to make a lot of money as physicians and money won't really be a concern and we can figure out at that time. But the time value of money is so important. And by investing early, you give that time for compounding to happen. And that really makes it that you have to actually save a lot less if you start investing early because of how much that compounding really works for you.
Yeah, that's a really important thing to think about. You just mentioned one in terms of starting to invest early, but what are the main, like if you could share with the audience, what are like the main concepts that you think are important to think about when you're investing and in terms of financial wellness?
Yeah. So no matter what your age, there's no better time to start than now, right? So maybe you didn't get to start investing early, but you still have hopefully, decades of time to actually continue to start learning about saving money, learning about investing money, and learning about how to take care of your personal finances. And the best time really to start is now. So it's easy to kind of be like, I'll figure that out later, but later can turn into years. And right now we're at a time where we do have a lot of volatility in investing, and so people are scared to invest. But typically, you actually do want to invest when things are on sale, and things are on sale when the stock market goes down. So if we do have a recession, if we continue to see the stock market drop, then that might actually be your chance to kind of make up for a lost time, since over the last decade or so, we've had a really robust economy and a growing stock market. And what I really also want to impart is that you want to financially take care of yourself now, but you also want to financially take care of your future self. And I know this is about wellness. And so that financial wellness, I think, is imperative for everyone, that we are in control of our own financial wellness, no matter what our situation is. And if you're married and you have a spouse and you're like, oh, my spouse takes care of all that, I really still encourage you to at least know how things are going and what they're doing and have conversations about that, because your spouse may think they're doing a great job, but they're not necessarily doing a great job. I have definitely talked to people where they only found out what their spouse was doing with their finances when they're now looking at divorce, and they didn't realize just how little had been put away, and they didn't realize how unfortunately precarious their financial situation really was at that point. So I think it's really important for every single person to at least have an idea of what's going on, because no one cares about your money more than you do. And we are really in a position now where we need to be able to take care of ourselves.
That's good advice, definitely. And by we, I think, what are you referring to? Women or women in general, or what are you referring to?
Really, I'm referring to everybody, but women even more so, because I do think, I mean, society has so many messages that, oh, women don't make a lot of money. Women should be handling money. And this is like centuries of what's been taught for us. It wasn't until, like, I don't remember all the dates offhand, but like there was a time not that long ago, within some of our lifetimes, potentially, of people who are listening to this, where a woman could not get a loan from a bank without her husband's signature or without a man's signature, or couldn't get a credit card or couldn't get a checking account. I mean, we women were really actually excluded a lot from the world of money. Women were often like given an allowance to be able to take care of the household, and that was basically the money that they had. And so that really taught women, okay, we get our money from men, we get our money from our spouse, and we don't have control over how much money we get. A lot of this is just societally ingrained in women, and it's really, and I mean, it's even the women aren't good at math, right? All that makes us think that we're not good at money, but women can be great at money. And in fact, there are some studies that show that women are on the whole, like better investors because we think more broadly about what we're doing and our financial goals, and where we don't just have shiny object syndrome as often and chase returns like a lot of men do. And the other thing is that women tend to live longer than men. So if you do have your spouse taking care of everything and your spouse dies before you do, then you're now going to have to take care of everything. And you do not want to have to learn this when you're in your 70s or 80s or 90s, right? You want to be able to learn this now.
Yeah, that's really a good point, actually. And so you mentioned FIRE, which is sort of, what does that stand for again?
Yeah.
Remind
It's
them.
financial, yeah. FIRE is financial independence, retire early. It's the idea of the hardcore FIRE people. They think about like, okay, how can I save, invest, and live as frugally as possible so that I can retire early and not have to work anymore. And so I like to look at FIRE, like that frugal FIRE approach, as one extreme,
Yeah.
and the other extreme is you only live once, right? Where it's like, well, I don't know how long I live, so I'm just going to enjoy life now. And I really think it's about having kind of a balance in between the two.
Yeah, that's what I was going
Working,
to ask. Like, what's your approach to that? Like FIRE versus kind of, you want to live and enjoy your life as you're kind of going through it. How do you balance those two?
yeah, so it is taking care of yourself financially now, but also think about taking care of yourself financially in the future. So I do encourage everyone to work towards financial independence because there is going to be some point, should you live long enough, that you are no longer going to want to work a day job in order to cover your expenses. And so in that way, I like to think of a job as something you do to have cash flow in order to spend for all the living expenses in your life, right? You need to have housing, you need to have food, transportation, all those living cost money. That's just the world we live in. And so how do you get the money to live for that? That is your job. And so during your working years, your job is whatever job you're doing in order to produce income. Right now, my job is a physician. I produce income working as a physician. But there's some point where if you don't want to keep working your day job, you need to have another job in order to have cash flow to pay for that. And that job is being an investor and managing your money so that your portfolio, whatever you're invested in, can now bring you the cash flow so that you can live. And whether you're aiming for that to happen at age 65, which, kind of is traditional retirement these days, or you want to do it earlier at 60, 55, 50, like all those things are possible depending on what your circumstances are and what you decide to do with that. Right. So what percentage of your income you decide to save and invest, the more you do that earlier on, the earlier you could potentially stop working for money. And it may not be that you just like, okay, you get to this point and you fully retire. It may be that you decide that you're going to continue working, but doing something that you love that maybe pays less, or maybe you actually like what you're doing, but you'd like to do it for less hours, or you'd like to take more vacation. So it's really about structuring your life to kind of meet your goals, like all your goals. Like how do you want to live your life? What would be an ideal life now? And your ideal life now could be different from your ideal life in 10 or 20 years. And then how do you financially fund that ideal life now, but also be putting away monies and investing it so that you can fund that ideal life in 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
So many things to think about, but it's good to like think it through as early as possible so that you can set things up for yourself when you get to that point. Yeah, those are all good, really good thoughts. And it's just as we're kind of coming to the end of this, is there any other sort of last pieces of advice or thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience?
I know finances causes a lot of stress for a lot of people, especially right now with the volatility we have. And I want to encourage people to create a financial plan and really stick with it, and create a financial plan that you can stick to even when the stock market is volatile, when everything feels unpredictable. Because the truth of the matter is, like, we never are able to predict the future. We never know when things are going to go well or not go well with the economy. There are lots of times people have said that there's going to be a recession for, I feel like the last 2 or 3 years, people have been saying that, and it hasn't really happened. And now people are saying, oh, it's going to be this year, and we'll see. It may happen this year. It may not. We never really know what the future holds. And by creating your financial plan and really sticking with it, now you've got an anchor, and that can really relieve a lot of financial stress. So that is something I hope people do. If they're interested, they can reach out to me. in order to create a financial plan. One thing I want to say is you might say like, well, why work with a money coach as opposed to a financial advisor? There are some great reasons to work with a financial advisor, but you really want to find someone fiduciary and someone who's really doing what's best for you. And unfortunately, the way most financial planners are compensated really makes it so that they're incentivized to sell you financial products and not necessarily help build you a great financial plan. So you really want to find a fee-only fiduciary advisor who's really going to go through your financial goals and help you develop that financial plan if you go that route. But again, please don't put this off. Like, this is just something we all have to learn at this point. And it's one of those things that I like, it's important, but doesn't feel urgent. So a lot of times those things get on the back burner. And I encourage you, like, you're listening to this podcast today, like, set aside a time within the next week or month at the longest where you're going to actually think about what you want to do, how you want to start gaining your financial literacy and taking control of your current finances and setting yourself up for future financial success so that you can have the best financial wellness, so that money does not have to be a stressor in your life.
Yes. Very good advice. Thank you. So please share with the audience how, if they want to learn more about you and what you do, how they can reach you.
My website is www.growyourwealthymindset.com. You can also email me at growyourwealthymindset@gmail.com. I'm also on social media. I can give you the links for the show notes if anyone wants to reach out to me that way.
Sure, that'd be great. Well, thank you so much. It's been really great to have you today and sharing your story and your financial wisdom. So I really appreciate that. And I'm sure the audience appreciates that as well.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I love that you're working to help improve wellness in all aspects of people's lives.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye. That's it for another episode of Essential Wellness. If you are enjoying listening to this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with others so everyone can find us. See you next time.